everybody, welcome back to Bruner Tuner. We're back with the Miata again. Today we're going to start reassembling the engine. So let's get into it. Checking this stuff. All right, well, we had to make a quick stop at Harbor Freight. Had to pick up some of these e-Torx sockets for the windage tray. Of course, I'm using the stubbiest ratchet ever. It has no torque. So let's switch over to the drill here and all right, so the next thing we're gonna do is be replacing this front main seal. This sits behind the lower timing gear, and you know, I don't know that it's been leaking too bad in the past, but we're already this far and it's such a cheap part that you might as well do it while you're here. So let's go ahead, get our seal puller and pop this thing out. That's a quick way to get these seals out. You got to be very, very careful though. I highly suggest you take one of these punches to punch a dimple into the seal. That way your drill doesn't walk back and forth like mine was trying to do. And then once you get it drilled in just a little bit, you start to thread on your decking screw and you can pull this thing right out. Again, I can't emphasize how careful you need to be because these are very easy to damage or mar up the metal. And if you do that, you're not going to have a good sealing surface. And here we go, here's our new OEM seals. I picked up this setup from 5X Racing. They have a whole timing belt setup that comes with a Gates cast impeller on the water pump, which is definitely the one that you want instead of the cheap stamped steel ones. Those are known to blow apart. The cast impellers are definitely the way to go, and the Gates kit they sell comes with it. Another trick, get you something with a flat square tip, a blunt tip on it, and you're gonna tap the edge of the seal, and you're also gonna overhang your tapping surface over the side of the block here. And what that's gonna do is let you get this thing to seat flush. So you hear the tone change. And there we go, looking good. All right, so I got the rear main seal carrier cleaned out. I'm not gonna put the rear main seal in until after we get the engine off the stand, but we will go ahead and mount the carrier. And that means we're gonna put some RTV on here and get this thing put in place. All right, let's work on getting this new water pump installed. All right, guys, we've got our new Mazda OEM head gasket. This is for a 99 to 2000 model 1.8. And the reason why we did that is the whole reason we're doing the coolant reroute, because on the VVT models, they had smaller ports. And let me actually grab the original one so I can show you what I'm talking about. So if we look here, this is our original head gasket. And if we place the new one on here, you can actually see the ports that I'm talking about. So right here, all these ones that are silver, these have been blocked by Mazda on the original 1.8 VVT head gaskets, and that was to restrict flow to the front cylinders and get more to go to the back to combat that cooling issue that stems from this being a front-wheel drive motor that Mazda just reworked into the Miata. And so now, you see, we've got all these different ports open. All right, guys, we've got our block. It is ready to receive the head, but before we do that, we need to get our ARP head studs installed in here, so let's do it. Our first step with this is to get these hand tight. We're not going to torque them down just yet. And we want to make sure we've got the hex side facing up. There it goes. So there's two dowels, one on the front right corner and one on the rear left that align the head. You want to make sure you drop down on those before you start torquing this. Now, before we get all of these head studs torqued down, we're going to hit it with some of this fastener assembly lubricant. This came with the head studs, and this is what APR recommends, so that's what we're doing. Okay, and now we got all of the nuts here. Don't know why I said it like that, but I did. Okay, so the next step here, we've got to tighten these down in 3 steps up to 65 foot-pounds, and we're going to follow the manufacturer's recommended torquing sequence, which is from inside to outside, starting with this one as number 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A little bit sweaty, but cylinder head is on. Now we can move to the front and address our timing setup, but that's gonna have to wait until my coolant block-off plate gets in, so I'll catch you back whenever that happens. All right, guys, it is a new day. I have not gotten my coolant reroute kit from but a part that I ordered from Flying Miata and another one I got from eBay have showed up. So here we've got our ATI super damper. I picked this up on eBay for super cheap. It was a deal of a lifetime. Probably a third of MSRP is what I picked this up for, new in the package. I just had to source a backing plate and a trigger wheel, which I got from Flying Miata. And those of you familiar with the BP 1.8 understand why I'm going with the super damper. However, if you don't, just know the old gal is fairly imbalanced from the factory, and some sustained high revs can shatter that factory oil pump. So the super damper is one of the tried and true ways to alleviate that. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this on while we're doing the timing belts. Now, unfortunately, this is a fairly tight interference fit with the crank, so we're gonna hit it with a little bit of heat here, try to get the metal to expand and see if this will slide on. Oh yeah, we're gonna hit this thing with a little bit of heat here, see what we can do. Got our keyway sliding out here. All right, so our ATI super damper is installed with our Flying Miata 36-2 trigger wheel with the help of some heat and our friends at Milwaukee. This thing drove on without too much of a fight, so definitely get yourself a torch and heat that sucker up before you go try to manhandle it on there. Hey, so me here again. I had to go pick something up because when you put this pulley on, you got to make sure the timing belt's on first. There's no room to get the dang thing through. And me, in my infinite wisdom, I got super hasty and just shoved this sucker on. And it doesn't just come back off very easy. You got to get the tool. So fortunately, AutoZone does rent out tools. So I get this harmonic balancer puller, and we're gonna redo the whole thing I just did. So yeah. That is a tight fit.
Oh, tight, 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 yeah!
Tight, tight, tight. We'll just get that placed in there. So I'm not gonna be able to torque this down until I get some kind of a crank holder tool. And so what I'm gonna do is just get some scrap metal. I'll cut 2 holes in it for these bolts to go through, tighten it down, and then we can have some counterbalance to crank against. All right, so we've gotten as far as we can get for right now. Once again, I am at the mercy of the mailing gods, and has got my coolant reroute on order. So once that gets in, I can put my block off plate here and reroute the coolant to the back, and then we can proceed with bolting on the rest of the timing components. But in the meantime, we are going to work on a different project. We are going to be doing some VHT wrinkle black on our valve cover and new square top intake manifold. The steps on this are pretty simple. There are several videos you can use to reference and do a quick DIY yourself, but basically you're going to want to get it real clean like I have done here, tape off any unnecessary areas that you don't want paint on, and then hit it with some wrinkle black. I'm not going to go too much into detail. I'm just going to throw you guys on the tripod and let you come along and watch. And I might have gone a little overboard, but we are all taped up and ready to go. Mainly wanted to focus on the VVT, oil cap, and the cam position sensor. Everything else was just kind of extra. I'd rather not get any paint in threaded holes, so I did that. And then additionally, just for the spark plugs bolted down. I don't know, probably not necessary. All right, we got our 3 coats. We did 1 vertical, 1 horizontal, and the last one diagonal with 5 minutes in between. So now we're gonna let the paint set up and dry for a couple hours. We should come back to a nice wrinkle finish. All right, everybody, new day in the shop. Decided to call it quits on the company that was going to be supplying the coolant reroute. I was just getting too much back and forth, making excuses. I'm not going to name any names. Just make sure if you're going to buy something from a small company, make sure that they have it in stock and that they're not just drop shipping it from somewhere else and you end up waiting for months for somebody else to deliver a product to them. So we ended up making our own block off plates. You'll see it right here. That's this guy. And then we do have a cobalt reroute. Purchased it on eBay. Somebody had one that was new in box that they were selling for roughly 70% of the new price. So I picked that one up and it should be here in a couple days. But what this block off plate allows is us to get the rest of the timing components on, get the valve cover put back on, the rest of the engine reassembled, and then we can get the transmission mated back up, get the clutch installed, all that. Once the coolant reroute's on, we'll drop it back in the car. And as you can see, we've made a little bit of progress in the car since then. That's coming in a future episode. And we got some stuff to clean up here, so I'm gonna clean up my mess, get everything somewhat organized, and then we'll get to tackling this project. Alright, that took some trial and error, but I think we are good on timing. We're lined up down here on our TDC mark with the T on the timing belt components cover. And then up here we've got both of our notches. I know the resolution isn't the greatest here. And both of our cams are pointed directly upwards. We've got 19 grooves on the belt in between the teeth up on top. So I believe we're good. I gave it a few more rotations and we're still lining up at TDC down here, and both of our cams are pointed up with our timing marks in the middle here, lining up. So I'm gonna call that good. We'll torque this down and get the rest of this timing belt cover set up. Alright, well that's going to do it for this one, folks. We are at a standstill until that coolant reroute gets here in the mail. So next episode we're going to pick back up with installing that, including the clutch and transmission, and getting it back in the car and hopefully started. As always, we thank you for tuning in and checking out these videos. Please consider subscribing or at least hitting that like and share. It definitely helps us grow the channel. So stay tuned for next time and we'll see you there. Peace.